Mine's right here.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the February session of the Paulding County Planning Commission. If everybody would please take their seats. If you have a mobile device, something that makes noise, please turn it off or to silence so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings of the meeting.
You make noise sometimes.
And at this time, we're going to dispense with the policies and procedures for participating in a public meeting. If you have any questions regarding those, there should be a copy provided at the back of the room. Please feel free to take a copy. And at this time, I'd ask the Planning Commission if you've had an opportunity to review the minutes from the previous session of this body, and do you have any questions, comments, edits, concerns? If not, I will entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve by Mr. Henson. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Lowe. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Just to cover a couple of things, this is a recommending body. Basically, we will hear the applications brought before us today. We will render a recommendation that will go to the governing authority for the jurisdiction that the property is located in. That would be the Board of Commissioners for both applications today. If you have an interest in either of the applications, your attendance here is mandatory, as the applicant is also mandatory at the 7 o'clock meeting tonight for the Board of Commissioners meeting. In presenting the application, the applicant will have 15 minutes to present. You may use all of that time or reserve some of it for rebuttal. Any questions from the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners do not count against that time. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application or may have questions, comments, or concerns, that total time allotted is 15 minutes collectively. Any questions, again, from the Planning Commission or Board of Commissioners during that process, that time will not count against those 15 minutes. In all cases, whenever applicant is being presented by the applicant, or if anybody wishes to speak on behalf of that application, or conversely on the other side, if they wish to speak in opposition or have questions, comments, or concerns, all comments will be directed to the chair, which is me. Mr. Robinson?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First application, 2020-01 LUP. Application by David T. Pace for a land use permit to operate a rural business auto repair in an R2 suburban residential zoning district on a 6.882 acre property. Property is located in land lot 799, District 2, Section 3. It's on the east side of Paul Aiken Road and south of Scoggins Road. Address is 63 Paul Aiken Road. It's in Commission Post 2. Staff recommends if this is approved, 3 printed stipulations, and we have a support petition that is included as your backup material of neighbors that are in support of this application, and the applicant is present.
If the applicant will please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
How you doing, guys? Nervous, but anyway, my name is David Pace, and I do occupy the property there. And we have, if you can see it on the map right there, it's kind of laid out in 2 different sections, if you notice that. But I do own all of it. What happened, long story short, I've always been a mechanic back in the day, is what they used to call me, but now they call us technicians because of technology. That being said, I've done it all my life. I worked for Nissan for 28 years. And my dad passed away, and he always wanted me to have my own shop. It was never feasible when I was growing up at the time, married. Raised 2 daughters there on this property. We've lived there forever. We know all of our neighbors. That being said, I left Nissan and started doing forklift repair, and I got hurt in an automobile accident. So I've got limited things I can do and what I can't do. I can't work full-time doing transmission and pulling motors no more like I used to, so I just tinker, basically. And it's behind the house, and I was just asking for permission to use my land to be able to do that. My wife works a full-time job. It's hard to make it with one income coming in, and I try to abide by all the rules. And I've been there for a few years. The shop's been up, but it wasn't used for anything, basically just personal use, the boat and whatever. And then after I got hurt, I started tinkering, and it just manifested a little bit. And everybody's like, well, can you fix my car? Can you fix my car? You know, the neighbors know who I am. Like I said, I went around and talked with all my neighbors what they thought, how they felt, you know, any traffic, if I was a nuisance to them, if it would be a problem. They all signed it. And I have one neighbor directly across the street from me that's with me to support me today. And I'm just asking for the permission to be able to use my land and, you know, try to progress for my family and the community. We do honest work, you know. I don't know what else I can say to that, other than, like I said, I went completely up and down the road in front of me, even down Scoggins, and then all the way back down Paul Lake and across the street. We don't normally do anything. I'm not a full-fledged shop for a retail shop. I don't open to the public. It's just a word of mouth. I do a few car-like cars for Dallas Auto Mart. His used cars, if he's got a problem, he needs something fixed, I'll work on them. Other than that, that's about all we do there.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Question for you. You're familiar with the 3 listed stipulations recommended by the staff on your application?
I'm not real.
If you would, Mr. Robinson, would you put those in front of him?
Oh, okay. I understand. Exactly. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're agreeable to those 3 listed stipulations?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
At any given time, how many vehicles do you think will be at this place?
Maximum, try to keep it down at least no more than 8. And that varies at times. I mean, you never know if you're on a parts hold or you're waiting on a part, you know what I mean? It's not a lot of vehicles. I try not to keep them around there because I don't want my place to look junky, for one thing. You can't collect a bunch of junk around because it looks trashy. That hurts the property value, that hurts the neighborhood, you know. But my shop is located where it's located. It's got a parking area that's not really visible to the road. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Could you indicate on the picture to your right that they're showing us on the screen where you would be doing your work and where those cars would be stored?
All right, do you see the location of the house up on the hill with the pool? You see my swimming pool?
I do.
All right, you see the little building down right there? That's my little 30 by 30.
Okay.
Now, does Mr. Elrod still run the garage next to you?
Mr. Elrod, he's a plumber, but no, sir, he don't have a garage there no more.
It burned several years ago, didn't it?
Yes, it did, and well, I ain't bragging on myself, but he was trying to get his bass boat out that day. It caught on fire, and that thing was engulfed in flames. I told him, begged him, don't open the door, so he didn't. If he had it, it'd have been really a big mess.
Are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners, any questions to the applicant?
Mr. Pace, what do you do with your used, broken, unusable parts? Where do you take those?
I use them whenever I have recycled metal. I recycle it, take it to the scrap yard. Don't accumulate big piles of it. Usually do that on a monthly basis, and actually that money, the scrap money for like old metal parts and rotors and stuff like that may be there. Once a month we take them off. My son, my adopted son, is 12 years old. He races motocross. So what he does, I help him load the scrap metal and stuff. He uses that to buy his fuel, enter the races and stuff like that, because he races motocross. Trying to help him along and teach him stability in this day and time. Got to work for what you want.
Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Pace. You can take your seat.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on behalf of this application?
Yeah, I can.
If you would please come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Okay. I'm Rodney Plunkett. I live right across the road, like to the left right at the road front. That's my house, in front of his house with a pool. It's right there. So I'm right there, and there's no problem with what he's got going on down there. It's off down in the hill anyway, from where I'm at. And the only way you can see anything is right when you go past that little gravel road. You know, you can see down in there a little bit, but there's not noise. I mean, it's it's good to have him over there like he is. And but as far as anybody having a problem with noise or too many cars or anything like that, I'm there all the time. I'm retired, and it don't bother me. There's not it's not like a business thing, you know. So that's all I got to say. I mean, he's a great neighbor, and he got great kids, and I like what he's doing. And I just wanted to speak for him because I'm right there on him, and he don't bother me a bit.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone that would wish to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Yes, ma'am, if you come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
I'm Joyce Kirk. I am the owner of land lot 800, which adjoins this property. I have no objections to him trying to improve his business there. However, I would like to insert that I am having trouble with motor vehicles, four-wheelers, and everything else coming to my property and destroying my property. I would like the applicant to provide some kind of fencing to my property or something to eliminate people coming from there. I did stop two people on four-wheelers that said that they come from that area. I do not know their names. I do have pictures of them. But I'd just like something to say, you're not going to encroach on my property with the business that you're running there that repairs vehicles, motorcycles, four-wheelers, and stuff like that.
Do you believe that the four-wheelers are directly related to the, I'm right here, is directly related to the business that he's doing, or is it just incidental to?
I think it's just incidental. I do think that the four-wheelers that I did talk to, they did come from that area. They told me that's where they came from. But that's just what they said. I didn't go any further with that. I just told them that they did not have permission to be on my property. I have people hunting on there that don't have permission.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to alleviate a problem before it starts.
All right. Is there anything else, Mrs. Kirk?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns regarding this application? Hearing none, Mr. Pace, if you could please come back. And you have time remaining if you would like to address anything that was heard, specifically as it relates to this last comment, but if there's anything else you wish to add, this is your time, and then we may ask you questions.
Okay, that's fine. I haven't got the opportunity to meet her. I think your mom and dad own that property or
My mother did.
your mother. Okay. Anyway, I talked to her, not talked to her, but the four-wheelers and the dune buggies and the things like that are coming through there. They come through my property. They do come through my property. I don't allow it. I've talked with her and told her I've tried to stop it, you know what I mean? But if you go behind on her parcel of land right there on the 800, I mean, there's nothing back there but a bunch of four-wheeler trails. It used to be the thing back in the day. It's quieting down a lot. You know, I had the same problem, people coming out of the woods, pulling up behind the house there on their four-wheeler. So they're in and out of there, but they come from different directions, you know what I'm saying? But this incident she's talking about this weekend, I did go to my lake house in Alabama, and I come back, and there was two trucks and a trailer parked in my gravel area parking lot down there. And evidently, they had unloaded their ATVs, four-wheelers, or whatever, and went down through the woods off of my property. They entered her property off of my property, not with my permission. You understand what I'm saying? And I just come back and I was like, well, whose truck is that? And my wife goes, well, I don't know who that is. I said, well, it looks like they got their four-wheelers, somebody's riding four-wheelers or something, you know? And that's that. But I don't, my son races motocross, like I did say, but he doesn't ride on her property. He knows he can't ride back there. I wouldn't let him ride back there because it's too dangerous. All them trails are old, they're rutted out. Now, years ago, when we moved here 12 years ago, before her mom passed away, we still didn't really ride that property, but people did ride that property, you know. That's just what they did. There were several people in the neighborhood. You got to remember, Pace's Lake is right over there. There's people that come in from that side. They've come all the way in from the trailer park side because all them trails join that 800 right there. And then you got the subdivision down the road on Paul Lake that never got developed. People come in and out of there. They load up, you know what I mean, and unload and go out that area. Unfortunately, you know, I don't give nobody permission to unload to go ride her property. And I do work on ATVs and motorcycles. I work on lawnmowers, weed eaters, and chainsaws. You know what I'm saying? But I don't test drive them on her property or anything else. My son's actually got his own little track that he practices on back there. So what it is people coming in and riding, and I do know who them people were, and I will contact them about it because they didn't ask my permission. Me and the wife wasn't even home this weekend. We were in Alabama, Leesburg. Come back and seen the trucks, and I was like, uh-oh, you know, because I agree with what she's saying. I understand protecting your land. You don't want it washing. You don't want them down there playing in the creeks and in the streams, digging them out. But, you know, I mean, it's common sense. Respect somebody else's land. And that's the reason we don't have that privilege no more, because people don't respect other people. This is the main reason. You know, you got to have consideration for folks. That being said, I guess that's my statement.
All right. Well, then, as it was mentioned, I guess I will go ahead and ask the question, is it feasible or is it something you would consider about cordoning off an area to keep people from utilizing your property as an avenue into?
Yes, and that's been done several times. There used to be a fence down through our barbed wire fence. Now, let's address this. I don't mind having no problem running barbed wire fence along my edge of the property from, Mr. Elrod's corner all the way back down through there. But then here's an issue. Me as a landowner, as well as she is, somebody comes flying through the woods and hits that fence, who's liable? I mean, it gets into the nitty gritty there. I have no problem putting it up if I got permission to do it, but they'll cut it. They don't, something happened, I don't know if it's, there you go. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? They'll cut it, but they're not legally coming in and out. I got signs up on my property, no trespassing. It's aggravating because it happens at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes people ride back there late at night, and all of a sudden you get woken up because of my dogs are barking, and you look outside and it's a four-wheeler down there around my little shop, and I've got cars there, and they turn around and go back out, so I'm wondering, who are they? You know, where are they going to steal? You know what I'm saying? So I try to keep them out just as well as anybody else. And Mr. Elrod, his son-in-law lives there. He's a Cobb County officer, and he tries to watch too. You understand what I'm saying? That's something that's hard to do with them ATVs because they come in from everywhere, but I do not allow permission to enter there off my property. I don't want them riding on my property. They get hurt, they unload their thing and roll it over before they get to the woods and get on her property. I'm in trouble. You know, it's not feasible. It's not set up for that.
Okay. I can sympathize. I mean, in the area where I live, I got a lot of people who will ride through on my property on four-wheelers and such. Of course, if they hit some barbed wire that I put up in order to contain my property, I would imagine that the culpability would be on them.
Right.
For trespassing, but you never know.
Yeah, you just hear all these lawsuits. I'll be honest with you. I'll speak my I'm a country boy. People are so happy if they can find a way to sue me because I put that fence up there and they got hurt. You know, sometimes they seem they have more rights than I do.
Well, at this time, is there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
I have a
question.
I have one,
Okay, go ahead.
or a couple, actually. Do you currently hold a business license?
That's the reason this is being done now, to hold the business license. I'm trying to get my business license done. And I got to have this before I can go forward with that.
Okay. So on the route up here, I passed by there, and with all due respect, it looked like there were more than 8 cars there, a little like 12 to 15 cars.
There's several there. I do own several cars of my own that are my daughter's cars where she just wore it out and I can fix it and flip it and resell it. I do have them. I'm in the process of getting all them moved out of there.
Well, it seems to me like it would be in your best interest and in the neighborhood's best interest if you could put up some kind of a short privacy fence on each side of your building and park those cars back behind the building, more out of sight. I know you have people drop their cars off waiting to be worked on. You'll have cars waiting to be picked up. And if you're working on cars, there's going to be some cars sitting out there. We certainly expect that, but I mean, if there's a way, it looks like you got ample property there. It looks like
How do I click this?
it'd be better if you had a short privacy fence.
Oh, I can do that. Why do I click? There you go. This is my building right here, okay? So this is the driveway that comes in. You can see the tree line. Of course, you can see down it. A lot of times I park my ready cars when the customer's gonna pick up or I gotta deliver them that day or the next day. I'll park them along this edge right here and you can see them. You know what I mean? But I'll back them in neatly. I don't, you know what I'm saying? And then the other cars, when they got a motor job or something that has to be pushed in and out, unfortunately, I can't just roll in the shop, so I have to roll them out to where I can take a four-wheeler truck and push them up into my garage right there. That being said, this area back here is basically where I could put my cars. That's out of sight, out of mind. You can't, there's no way you could see them from there, because I could put a fence here if I had to.
Would you be willing to make that stipulation, put a privacy fence there?
I'll be willing to work with you guys any way I got to. I just want to do things right and do things legal. I don't want no complaints from nobody. I got to make a living and do what I can do, you know?
So you would be willing to make that a stipulation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can put a fence up if I need to.
Yeah, but I think it would be good if you had that and you could store the cars behind there and that way more of the cars wouldn't be seen from the road.
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
Mr. Henson?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Could you put up some kind of a barrier or a chain or something when your shop is not in operation to stop traffic from coming in?
Well, yes, sir. The only problem with that is this driveway adjoins this. There's a little house right here.
Oh,
That's my mother-in-law's suite. My mother-in-law lives right there.
okay.
So that's kind of her driveway, and it just so happens that's just where I put my shop. And I like the way, I don't know, well, this line y'all got, I guess that's the actual way everything's laid out. So it's kind of split. I wish I hadn't have done that. But anyway, I don't plan on losing neither one of the pieces of the property, to be honest with you. But my mother-in-law, she lives back here rent-free. When we bought this place, she lived in the basement with us in Douglasville, and we loved the land and the area. We had to get out of Douglasville. The mall come, and I said, that's enough for me. I don't want to be there no more. Come out here, but Paulding County's growing too, guys. But she stays there. That's where she lives, you know. I could figure out some kind of way, like I can't pin her in there.
Well, what I was looking at is to keep traffic from coming over across your property into this lady's property.
Yes, sir. See
When
what they're
you're
doing?
not-
They're coming off the road and they're coming here and they parked right here, what they
Right.
did. And then they unloaded and they took off down. There's a lower logging bed trail right here that goes into the back of my property. And they're actually coming in and out approximately, to be honest with you, about right in here. That's where they're coming in, where that little creek line is. I mean, it's just like you can drive a Toyota four-wheel drive down my property, of course, through the woods and the trail, but you can hit her property, and the trails back there through her property, unfortunately, are big enough for dune buggies and four-wheel drive trucks. They've been there forever, and people know they're there.
Well, I think it's very desirous on the part of the planning commission not to see a civil dispute arise between neighbors when it doesn't need to be. But also, there are avenues to address people who are utilizing your property without permission or entering Mrs. Kirk's property without permission. There's typically a trespassing law of some sort that can be used to address that. I believe the sheriff's department will respond when called on such an issue. A lot of times, if you can photo document what has happened, then you increase the likelihood of stopping the people who are consistently doing it. At this time, though, is there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
I do. Hey, Mr. Pace.
Hey, buddy.
Mr. Haynes?
Hey, if this is approved, I don't see any kind of limitations on the number of cars that can be parked back there. And I mean, if you decided to hire on another mechanic, that could increase. Would you entertain a limit in being able to come back to the commission if that increases over a certain number, if we put a limitation on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I just ask that y'all keep in consideration. Sometimes you have to work on 2 or 3 things to accomplish one,
Yes.
But yes, sir, I'm in compliance. I'll comply with what y'all set in for.
What do you feel like would be a reasonable, fair number?
Honestly, we don't go,
15, 20?
yeah, let's say 15 or 20. I mean, that's way max. That's almost as much as Big 10 Tire does,
15,
probably.
okay.
But I mean, I would never exceed that, I know.
Well, to address the one component of your question about coming back, Mr. Robinson, could you clarify for an LUP, is there a time limit on an LUP where it must be renewed?
If this application is approved, there's a 2-year time frame
So-
for this to come up for renewal of some type.
So regardless of what's decided here, if he's approved, he would have to come back in 2 years to apply again.
That's correct.
And you would be able at that time also to determine how well this has functioned and whether or not you would like to see it renewed. Feel free. Just word it for us. Any other questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant? Board of Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Pace.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I will entertain a motion regarding application 2020-01-LUP. Please keep in mind, there are 3 stipulations already there. If you wish to add one, please word it for the record.
Motion to approve with only stipulation number 1.
I have a motion to approve with only stipulation number 1.
That's correct.
So there is a motion on the floor to approve with one stipulation being the first one listed. Is there a second? Hearing none, that motion has failed. Is there another motion with regard to this application?
Motion to approve with the 3 printed stipulations.
I have a motion to approve with the 3 listed stipulations. Is there a second? Hearing none, that motion has failed. Is there another motion that would be considered for this application?
I make a motion to approve the 5 stipulations, adding the privacy fence on the south side of the building to place the cars behind it, and the stipulation that Mr. Haynes mentioned, adding as well.
That would be the limitation of
15 vehicles.
15 vehicles. Mr. Robinson, did you catch those?
Yes.
So we have a motion to approve with the 3 listed stipulation with 2 additional, 4 and 5. 4th being a privacy fence on the south side of the building to be installed, and the 5th stipulation to be a limitation on the number of vehicles stored at the site to 15 vehicles. Is there a second on this motion?
I second.
I have a second from Mr. Haynes. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 5, 1, and 1. Again, this is not the final action on this. It will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners meeting tonight at 7 o'clock. Applicant must be present for it to be considered. If you have an interest in it, you should also be present. All right.
There it goes.
When you are ready, Mr. Robinson.
Okay. Next application, 2020-01 SUP. It's application by Bobo Investment LLC for a special use permit to operate a camper boat recreational vehicle an auto storage lot in a B2 Highway Business District. The property is approximately 7.36 acres. Property is located in land lot 26, District 2, Section 3, and in land lot 1271, District 3, Section 3, on the east side of Bobo Road and north side of Riverwood Way. It's in Commission Post 1. Staff recommends that this is approved to the one printed stipulation, and we have had notification from adjoining property owner of opposition. Applicant is present.
If the applicant will please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Mandy Whitmore. We own Mainstream Automotive as well as Bobo Investment. My husband's here with me as well. The photo that you're looking at is kind of old. Approximately 2 years ago, we built an auto repair shop right here at the front of the property. So we have a building there that's, how big is it?
7,200 square feet. 7,200 square feet.
7,200 square foot building here, an auto repair shop. We also installed a retention pond here. So the back of the property was unused. And we've been in business for 10 years in Paulding County. So a lot of our customers were coming to us. We work on everything as well. We work on boats, campers, recreational vehicles. A lot of our customers were asking us what we were going to do with the back of the property. And that's when we kind of had the idea to do the storage in the back. For trailers, boats, campers, spare vehicles. We've had a couple of customers come to us that their vehicles couldn't be parked at home anymore because they weren't registered, so they needed a place to pay to store those. So that's why we were here to ask for the permit to do storage in the back. Sorry. There we go.
All right. Anything further you'd like to add?
We've had a few customers.
If you're going to speak, you need to sign in, state your name, and address me.
We've had quite a few customers come from Riverwood, probably 25, 30 of them looking to store because they can't have any boats, RVs, trailers, anything in their neighborhood, period. We used to live there. We know that for a fact. So that's where the idea initially came from, was from the Riverwood homeowners. We were still undecided on what we were going to do with the property and didn't really have any ideas until they started addressing us. So we've had 25, 30 people from Riverwood. We've had a lot of phone calls just throughout Paulding County. Apparently, every storage lot in Paulding County is full. They're having to park out of county. And so we've kind of been beat up about it, so we kind of decided to let's see what we can do to pursue it.
And I probably missed this at the outset, but what was your first name?
I'm Brad.
Brad.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add? No. At this time, is there any question from the Planning Commission to the applicant?
Yes. So you built an auto repair facility there. Is the rest of, I'm looking at an aerial view off of Google Earth, and it looks, on that view, looks like the rest of the property is wooded. Is that still the way it is?
No, sir. It's all, the whole property is cleared.
It's all cleared?
Yes, sir.
Just like that?
We did plant Leland cypresses all the way around the property. Those are about 2 years old, so they stand maybe about 5 or 6 feet tall right now. But eventually, those will border the whole property. We're hoping with like a border.
Are they on Riverwood Way too?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. They're all the way around.
On 3 sides.
Okay.
And I don't think I mentioned, but we're approximately, we're thinking that we can store, we had Mr. Rakestraw do a survey for us, and we're thinking approximately 75 units.
Is the
And Riverwood Way, there's about a 25-foot hill blocking Riverwood Way in our building. So you can't see from Riverwood Way what's going on there, except for the back corner, which we've got Leland's back there, and I had planned on putting more Leland's on top once we finished with what we were going to do with that ground area.
What about your security? How are you going to control who's going in and out? to that lot and.
Yeah, they'll come in through our lot, our business lot. We'll, once we're done and we were okay to do what we're gonna do, we will have a gated access.
Running
Yeah,
across the front of the property. Let me show you.
Yeah, it would be,
Also, I noticed on your letter of intent, you had cars listed on there. What would you need to put cars back there?
well, like, we have some customers come to us, the marshals that paid them a visit, their car don't,
It's not registered.
yeah, not registered, whether it's up, trying to get a title or things like that, they can't register it, get it, and so it's uninsured. They want it out of their house, and they brought it to us to store. Now, I've been storing them on the property as far as working on them, trying to get them ready to go, but we've got a couple of people contact us about that.
We also have a couple of customers who can't afford the repairs right now, so we would put them in a paid storage facility. So we're planning to use the front part of the property for vehicles and small trailers, and then the back part of the property for campers and boats and that kind of thing, bigger trailers.
Is this lot paved that you're gonna park these?
In the very back where that we plan on doing 6 foot of compressed millings, or something,
6
6 inches of compressed millings is what we intended on doing.
Is there gonna be a runoff water problem?
No, sir, it's already been done, and the retention pond for the property is already built to handle the whole property, and it's already been graded, the whole property, to run to the retention pond.
Any other questions from the planning commission?
I have one.
Mr.
How you
Haynes?
doing? I noticed on the letter of intent as well that it had, obviously you've got boats, RVs, cars, et cetera, and it had et cetera. What kind of, did you hear your thoughts with the et cetera?
We're willing to park anything, so I guess I just wanted to make sure that.
Not anything, no tractor trailers of any sort.
Right. Did I mention, so it would be boats, I don't see my letter of intent.
Yeah, like boats, campers, box trailers, work vans for customers that live in Riverwood, things like that can't drive a personal van home or work van home, things like that. But nothing, no tractor trailers, no big rigs, no boxes for tractor trailers of any sort.
What do you do to guard against a stored vehicle that cannot be registered and may need to be worked on from ceasing to be that and becoming a junk vehicle?
Well, that's kind of up to us. We're kind of hoping the junk vehicle that people want to leave and abandon with us, if they are going to pay to store it, then they have the intent to fix it.
Right.
If they leave it with us for more than a month, we're going to get rid of it one way or another.
Right. We either request that, I'm sorry.
Whether we tow it back to their house at our expense, that's the way we do it now. Because we just don't want it to look junky, and anybody who's been by the shop knows that we try our best to make it look good, even though it's an auto repair shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Would there be any kind of material storage there other than what you've listed here and talked about?
You mean as far as hazardous materials?
Maybe, yeah.
No, sir.
Materials, wood, any
No,
kind
sir.
of, other than vehicle kind of?
no, sir.
Any other questions from the planning commission?
The security of the lot, will the Leland Cypress be secure enough? You're putting a fence across the front of it.
Well, the way the lot is designed and been graded, on that one side more towards Riverwood, there's a 25-foot hill that you could barely get up with a four-wheeler. On the back side, there's a 25 to 30-foot drop-off on the rest of the property until you get to the front. So they pretty much couldn't go anywhere with anything on the property or get to it with a car or vehicle unless they come through the front.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, the only stipulation listed on this from the county staff is that the owner developer agrees the site is subject to Highway Corridor Overlay District standards, and you're agreeable to that, which I think is simply a regulatory, you're going to be subject to it regardless, but
Yes, sir.
I typically ask if you're familiar with the stipulations.
Yes, sir.
Is there any questions from the Board of Commissioners?
No.
It's Brad and Mandy, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do y'all work on Sundays?
No, sir.
There's a church across the street, right?
Yes.
And are the homes to the east, are their homes occupied, or they just have them platted right now?
The homes in Riverwood behind us, there's only one home that's there. The rest of them are just plotted. There's one in the very corner
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But as far as all the rest of them, they're just lots that nobody lives in.
And from the edge of the lot to where the drawing that's on the screen now, to arrive at the parking areas, what would be the length of that?
Are you talking about the buffer in the back?
Yes.
I left, there should be a 50-foot buffer and then another 50 to 60-foot buffer that I left there for wilderness grow up, just so there's natural between us and anybody that can see.
Would you have an issue as far as putting a fence around the outside of the property? I mean, I know there's slopes going up and down, but I own property that's same thing, and I have people stealing from me all the time.
I mean, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I mean, the problem is the way the ground does back there, it's going to be on an embankment. I mean, it's a pretty big embankment. I couldn't walk that embankment if I wanted to.
Could you, like on top of the slope?
Put it up at top.
Yeah, I mean, it would encroach on what we have drawn there, but yes, we probably could. I mean, we could do it. It would just, it would encroach on our area we have drawn up.
Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners? We'll come back to the Planning Commission. Any questions?
Commissioner Stover mentioned that fence around the perimeter. That seems to be a good idea. Would you be willing to make that a stipulation?
I mean, if that's what we need to do, then yes, sir, that's what we need. I mean,
I would think you need that for security of the vehicles and other campers and other things parked in there to keep people from walking in, and you'd be surprised what people can do to vandalize and steal batteries and other kind of things out of
We have
campers.
thought about that, and one of the anybody that would park with us, it would be a park at your own risk kind of situation. So they would have their own insurance, and we've actually asked them to. We were thought that we would ask them to provide insurance for whatever that they're parking there, unless it's maybe just a trailer. But if anybody's got an RV or camper or boat, typically they would have insurance on it.
And as far as the security part of it, we've already contacted Greystones. Once we're okay with everything, they're going to come out and put 3-pole lights, and they're going to run them just like the street lights are out front, out on that property, lighting it up. One being back towards that corner facing us, that way we're not blinding the neighborhood, and then the other 2 facing down onto the property.
Yeah, I believe a fence around the exterior of the property would be beneficial to you.
Okay.
And I'd like to see you make that a stipulation, because it's not only just theft and all, people up to no good sneaks in places and does other things too that they shouldn't be doing, and it would just be beneficial to you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Thank you very much. You can take your seats. You still have time remaining if anything
Okay.
comes up. Does anybody else here wish to speak on behalf of this application? On behalf. Does anybody here wish to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Step forward, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Hello, my name is Harold J. Bickers. My property adjoins Mr. Whitmire, and I do have concerns, and y'all have already addressed one of them, that was about the fence. And I'll tell you why I think the fence needs to be there, and then I'll tell you my concerns, if that's okay. I'm not a regular speaker, so I'm just a little bit nervous, as y'all can tell. But anyway, the fence, for security purposes, for safety, because my property like I said, directly joins the property of the repair shop, the auto repair. So all anybody's got to do, if they take 2 steps off of his property, they're on my property. And I know people coming in at all different times of the night, if they got trailers or camper parked there, and I understand all that. It's got to happen to run a business. But with that said, a man that's running a business, he's going to be there probably a long time. I've been there all my life. I intend to die there. I sleep about 60 feet from the property line. And he goes, I mean, it's his business, but he sleeps wherever he sleeps. But I know I sleep. Nobody stays there on the property, is what my point is. And I sleep about 60 feet from the property. So people coming in at all times of the night, dropping their trailers, picking up their trailers, whatever they're going to do. I think there definitely needs to be a fence, and I wouldn't be myself satisfied with a normal little, what they call a privacy fence, like you see somebody's backyard. It needs to be a little more substantial to deal with safety, to deal with side issues, and the noise, and people coming across. But with that said, you addressed the issue on the fence, and that was going to be one of my main things. But he runs a repair shop. We know that. And with that said, he said he's going to park everything on the back side of the fence. I mean, the back side of the property. Well, there's cars already parked on my side. There's trailers parked in the middle of the lot. But that's all, as far as I, that's just, I said that to say this, the fence would take care of that. To me, the fence is crucial. And I think the guy on the end addressed it, the way in and out. Now there is one gate in, correct. And he's got a gate on it, also correct. But they can go around it, I mean, from any part, except on the big high hill, like he said, on the back. But any other of the property is adjacent. Anybody can come in and park, or they don't even have to come in and park. They can walk up the property, or leaving his property is what I'm concerned about. They can walk down on mine. And that's the concern about the fence. And like I said, he's already run a repair shop, so we know there's going to be junk cars there. It's going to turn into a junkyard. I mean, bottom line, we know that, but that's the way business is done, I guess. I just had a couple of things to say. I don't want to make it long and drawn out. Y'all done handled the main issue. But like I said, in and out at night, the fence would handle that. And it would help with the noise. It's just a safety issue. I mean, I could sleep better at night knowing there was a fence there. And you addressed also the runoff. I won't get into it too deep, but we've already had a runoff problem. Like he said, he's put in a retention pond. That helped greatly. But they didn't build it exactly right. It should have been turned up to hill, but I'm not an engineer. That's neither here nor there. But point being, with that said, if they pave that property, the property that it's kind of a half and half thing, right? Where his shop is, like he said, is down on the corner, right corner adjacent to Bobo Road, which leaves, I'm on the north side of him. And the property where he's got the retention pond is about, the property's about, I think it's like 6 acres deep. Or say 6 acres and all. It might be, anyway, halfway, took the retention pond goes about half the property is what I'm trying to say. The other half, just like he said, it steps down. They graded it out, and then it didn't grade it all the way hardly up to it, the top. It's got 2 steps to it. But anyway, if he wants to pave the back half, the back bordering Riverwood, it's going to create more water runoff than we already got. All of it won't go in the pond. It'll go right down the hill and come right across my driveway. Like I said, we've already had a runoff issue, and he did put in a retention pond. So, but there will be a runoff problem on me, on my property, if that property is paved there'll have to be some drainage, some engineering drainage done. I don't know about it, engineering, but it'll have to be handled, bottom line, or it'll wash my property away. So, with that said, that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers.
I have a question. Can you point out on the map where your property is, sir?
Let's see, I'm north of him. I'm,
Okay.
is that right there? Okay, yeah, okay. I can't, if that's my house, I can't see it, but he said that's where I'm at, right there. Yeah, I said, there it is. 447 Bobo Road, yeah.
Austin, can we go back to the laptop?
Sure, go ahead.
I've got to get it. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thought you were asking my permission. I don't recall that.
I'm asking a
I'm just fortunate enough to see what you're putting up there.
Oops. Now we just lost everything.
Well, I'm not good at all with these things. I can tell
There
you
we
that
go.
right away, quick.
It's this house right here.
All right. Okay.
As long as I stop.
Did you get me hooked up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Y'all give me a mouse, I could run that.
We need somebody to, because I sure can't.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Vickers.
Thank you.
Before we ask the applicant to come back, Mr. Robinson, would you mind stepping back to the lectern? Is this, before they were to establish this storage area, would this be something that would be subject to the plan review?
That's correct. There's two things that we were talking about in there. I did hear is the stipulation for highway corridor of this district that it would be subject to is because Bobo Road is not in a highway corridor, and so we needed that stipulation in there. That proceeds to add additional landscaping, screening, and actually controls light structures in there.
And that being said, once the plans are given to the professionals at the county, you will be looking at it from the point of view of stormwater runoff.
That is correct. It's
How
subject
it's
to
going to be
the plan
built.
review process.
Okay. And I do that not for my, but hopefully for a little bit of the edification of Mr. Vickers. This will go through a review process at the county to address some of the concerns that you spoke of at the lectern. Just wanted you to hear that. And then the fact that, again, we're not plan review, we're planning commission. So once it goes from here, assuming that it receives a favorable vote from the Board of Commissioners, any activity moving forward, the applicant will be responsible to submit those plans to the county for plan review purposes before they're issued a permit to be able to construct what they desire to construct.
That's correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
And it would have to meet development standards that the county already has in place.
Development and zoning standards.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions to staff? I don't want to be the only one asking that.
During plan review, would it not be a standard requirement for a storage facility to be enclosed by a fence?
That would actually be a stipulation, not a stipulation, but in the B2 district, any outside storage such as this would require a fence along the perimeter of the actual parking facility.
Would it also be required for that storage to be screened from view?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the size of this fence, how tall? Is it chain link? What?
It normally specifies at least a 6-foot fence that would not only protect what's in there, but also shield it from visibility also.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of storage facilities around the county. Is there any limitations on some of those, on what hours they can have people coming and going into those facilities per code or anything?
That's a good question. Under the zoning ordinance, there's not a limitation under this zoning district.
Any other questions to staff at this time? Board of Commissioners, you can join in as well.
Mr. Robinson, I've lost my train of thought. Just go ahead.
All right.
And one thing I did want to clarify
Yes, sir.
is with this special use, if it does get approved, it's limited to the recreation vehicle, boats and such. He cannot park tractor trailers and freight hauling trailers or anything like that.
And he's already stated that he understood.
Correct.
that, so.
Yeah, I thought about what it was. So do we need an additional stipulation about the perimeter fence or not, since it's already going to be in the review?
In the review, it would be a fence around the actual parking facility. If you wanted to have one also around the perimeter of the property or have that in lieu of, that would need to be a stipulation.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, if you'd like to take the lectern again. Again, please direct all your comments to me. Obviously, the idea of the fence, it was going to be a given in one way or the other, but there was a question regarding runoff. Have you noticed or seen any issues with regarding to?
Not,
Okay.
problem.
No, there's no runoff that's done over there. During the building process of this whole ordeal of building my shop and then the land and all that, with Mr. Bickers and I have been back and forth over this. We've had meeting after meeting, all the way up to state level, that met us out there and said, we're well above where we need to be as far as runoff. And your engineers and your guys in where your department can tell you that.
But you do recognize that, assuming that this moves forward favorably from the Board of Commissioners with an approval, that you will be subject to plan review requirements, meaning
Yes, sir.
they can take a look at it, and if it's found to be deficient, you can be required to improve it
Yes, sir.
to the standards that the county has.
Yes, sir. We're
Yes, sir.
confident in that detention
Yeah,
bond, 100%.
You guys have already approved it. We've done no changes to it.
The one thing that I would ask about the fence, we have no problem fencing the storage area, but to put a fence around the entire property would actually negatively affect the auto repairs portion, just because we have cars towed in and out, sometimes different hours or on the weekends. So we never really wanted to fence in that portion of the property. But we have no problem fencing in the perimeter of the parking, the storage parking.
Well, I know how this is going to sound when I ask you this, but it's not intended in a negative sense, but you're not willing to agree to a stipulation to fence the entire property.
Entire property.
You're
We would ask.
agreeable to fencing the storage area, the proposed storage area.
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify that moving forward so that there's no misunderstanding with.
Yeah, because that's 7 acres of property. We would have to be fenced, 7.5 acres of property. We would have to be fencing that goes up, down. I mean, it would be very, very costly to fence the entire property.
Well, the motion made by the planning commission can be however they wish to frame the motion, but just wanted that on the record. Are there any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
So this is planned to be a 24/7 access to the property?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, and it's all under surveillance. We have security surveillance of all, the entire property right now. So it'd be all under surveillance. So we keep an eye on things as well as, I'm sure Mr. Bickers does too. We keep it under control, or we would be keeping it under control as best we could. And at the same time, when Mr. Bickers said, he sleeps 60 foot from our property, he does, but our property, nothing happens within another acre between him and what happens. So, I mean, we think about everybody when we're trying to do everything we do. Work on cars, develop the property, we think about everybody around us.
You're saying the activity area on your property is an acre removed from where the concern is?
Yeah, his property is there, we have a 1 acre retention pond, then we have what's going on.
I just want to make sure I understood how you were saying that.
Yes, sir.
And I wouldn't imagine the way you stated it in the back, that hill's so high that not necessarily in need of a fence back there because it's so steep to begin with.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Could you give me an idea exactly on the map where you're going to put the fence, or you're willing to put the fence?
If we can go back to this drawing here.
Okay.
This back.
We have to lay it back down.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know
All
what
right,
the camera
yeah.
was. So this is our current
Yeah, you can-
auto repair shop here.
Right here.
This is the proposed parking. So the fence, we originally intended for the fence to go across the front of the property, but then we would definitely be willing to fence the entire parking area. But we would like to keep this open for traffic, for cars being towed in over the weekend or after hours.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2020-01-SUP.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is that with the one listed stipulation?
Yes, because it seems to incorporate the fence thing, which already.
So I have a motion to approve from Mr. Lowe with the one recommended stipulation. Do I have a second?
Yes, sir.
I have a second from Mr. Leggett. All in favor?
We have a question first.
One moment.
All right. We got the first stipulation is subject to the highway corridor overlay. Now, that would conclude the fence.
Yes.
Okay.
As it was
Make sure.
explained to us by Mr. Robinson,
That would include the
the
fence.
corridor overlay district has a requirement that would be administered through the plan review process.
Right, it'd be a two-part. The fence would provide screening based on the highway overlay district, and then the fence would protect the stored, anything that's stored outside based on the B2 base zoning district. That's a requirement of the zoning district for the fence, and then the static screening from the overlay district.
Mr. Phillips, did you have a clarification, or?
No, that is correct. Just reading straight from the B2 zoning ordinance itself, as Mr. Robinson said, any outdoor storage of materials, supplies, inventories, accessories, etc., is within a designated area enclosed by a 6-foot-high opaque privacy fence.
All right. So at this moment, I have a motion on the floor and seconded for an approval with the listed stipulation. So I'm in the process of taking a vote. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. And again, this will be forwarded to tonight's meeting of the Board of Commissioners at 7 o'clock. Applicant must be present for it to be heard. If anyone has an interest in the application, you should be present also. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Lowe. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Henson. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Thank you very much, and everybody have a wonderful week.